All right. We're going to get this started with a little piece about the founder of our feast, Mr. J. Gatsby.
J. Gatsby. In the end, Gatsby's problem was a simple one, perhaps too simple. Simple things are often harder to see when set against a backdrop of the spectacular, like trying to find a single spider in a garden filled with roses. But it is the spiders that will hurt you in the end. Gatsby's was a garden filled with spiders, and all because of that one simple thing. No matter how many high-class whores and wild-eyed youngest daughters he brought into his bedroom, or into his hotel suites, rather, for the bedroom was reserved, ever reserved, for the glorious golden fantasy who had long since claimed her marital privileges, if only in his dreams. J. Gatsby never learned to fuck like old money. Old money could afford to purchase pussy like it was nothing. Great teeming seas of heaving breasts and open legs, each with their own mysteries to suck and sample. Old money could try every perversion and permutation of the sexual world before most men could dream of more than a trip to the carnival coochie show. Where a woman whose best days were further behind her than an old farm horse might pull up her sequin skirt a little too high, granting them a glimpse of the mysteries that lay tucked and dreaming twixt her thighs. Old money could buy the carnival, buy the coochie show, buy the broken down old dancing girls, if it saw the need. Old money had no need for mystery, for poetry, for anything but prizing wide the legs of the world and ramming itself balls deep into dark and hidden places. Old money was carnal, cruel, jaded, capable of almost anything, while genuinely concerned with almost nothing. Gatsby learned this the first time he traded one of those top-flight call girls for a doe-eyed dame with legs like Road to Heaven and a cunt like the Promised Land. He expected their bodies to come together in erotic verse, his hands and lips and cock writing the depth of his love for Daisy on the body of a nameless stand-in, whose pleasures he would pursue almost as an apology for what was fucking without love. Instead, he had been ridden hard as a jalopy, pressed broken and sweating into the sheets while the force of nature he had invited into his bed worked through her anger at her father, at society, at the world. She'd kissed his cheeks before she left him, told him he was sweet, and slipped, still nameless, out the door while his prick lay quivering against his thigh, coated in the smell of her. The fucking of old money, he had quickly decided, would take more effort to master. So it was more expensive whores. So it was more dissatisfied daughters and the occasional dissatisfied wife, a rarer and more dangerous beast to bridle, what with the risk of husbands coming home, and most of them had gone so long without a proper fucking that they welcomed him with open arms. So it was more cheap impersonal trysts in closets and in cloakrooms, and once, while the champagne had flowed particularly easy and the night had grown spectacularly late, in the back seat of a stranger's car. Lacy undergarments, rumpled curls, and 24, 100 beautiful cunts, all blurred together in the faint taste of salt and bruises on his hips. And still, for all of that, he came to their beds eager and alert, watched their moods, desperate to please them and to be pleased in return. If J. Gatsby had been a soldier before he found his fortune, his cock was a soldier still. Surmounting beachhead after beachhead, maidenhead after maidenhead, in search of that perfect degree of jaded detachment. New money fucked like sex was still something precious and rare and difficult to come by. The tendency of J. Gatsby to put the pleasure of his partners before his own was whispered through certain secret channels, until he found himself surrounded by flocks of hopefully smiling girls in fringe and sequins, their jaded eyes bright with the thought of tasting and being tasted by something new. He was kind to all of them, because kindness was a part of the persona he had so carefully constructed, and he thought he kept them at a pleasant distance, even when they had their legs wrapped around his waist and their fingers buried in his hair. He was detached, cool, untouchable. He told himself that, and kept telling himself that, and no one believed him, least of all the girls who left him bruised and aching on the floor. Gatsby cared too much to ever understand the world that he had chosen, that had never chosen him. When Daisy finally came to him, pale and perfect and trembling, he thought the world was finally setting itself right, that at long last the story he had been composing for years was beginning to be told. He fell upon her with all the lessons he had learned from his nameless girls, but this was no hired harlot. This was no bored and bloodless heiress. This was Daisy, his Daisy. And when she spread her legs for him, his heart stopped. Just like it had on that long-gone North Dakota day when the lady at the carnival coochie tent had taken his order and shown him her secret, hidden labyrinth of pleasures. How could he be detached? She was everything he had ever wanted and more, and she wanted him, and all he cared about was pleasing her as a woman should be pleased. His tongue was Theseus in search of the Minotaur. And when he found the hard knot of its lair at the top of her cunt, he bore down until she moaned like Adrienne in the dark. When she left him come morning, her dress clutched around her and her knees still weak, he knew that she had been most thoroughly and sincerely fucked. And that in the end, was his undoing. For there is no hiding such sincerity in a world of pasteboard and facade. A man may change many things, his name, his standing, the cut and fabric of his shirt, but he cannot change the nature of his prick, or the memory of a carnival dame with her skirt hiked and her eyes shadowed by the ghosts of the sweet young girl she once had been. J. Gatsby fucked with sincerity. He fucked like new money, like every lay was precious and not his due. Perhaps if he had learned to do differently, he would have fucked for longer. But not perhaps with half so much brilliance.